Next up, I want to call up Amy Smith. Amy is the head of talent for the British animation and visual effects company Framestore. Amy is the Trailblazer Chair for visual effect apprenticeships and also the current chair for T-level panel of media, broadcast and production. Amy, welcome to the forum.
Thank you, Isa.
Hi, welcome. Amy, as an employer, I'd be keen to hear about some of the challenges you've faced over the years in recruiting diverse talent and the initiatives you've introduced to overcome them.
Sure. So the visual effects industry is obviously a relatively young industry. We're not much more than 30 years old, really, as an industry, in any significant sense. And so there's been a huge period within that 30 years of growth, essentially from 30 years ago when companies were 5 people to now when we have companies in the UK of close to 2,000 people or more in some cases. And what that growth has resulted in is a lot of unconsidered hiring in the sense of diversity. The other problem that we have as an industry is that although we are obviously creative, we create pictures. So at Framestore, for example, we create things like the Marvel films and the Harry Potter films and those kind of things. The skills that are required for that are actually a combination of creative and technical skills. So we need people who have science skills, math skills, computer science, all those kind of subjects. And so, like the rest of the STEM sector, we suffer from similar problems. We suffer from girls deciding to drop out of studying STEM subjects too early, from people from certain backgrounds not considering the creative industries as proper jobs, you know, all these kind of problems that are familiar, I'm sure, to lots of other people in lots of other industries. And so we wanted to address that, and we also wanted to address the kind of hiring that we've been doing, which was largely hiring people out of visual effects and animation degrees. And we'd sort of reached a point as an industry where we were about 92% degree educated, which frankly is ridiculous and completely unnecessary. You know, 30 years ago, people weren't getting into the industry with a visual effects degree because there was no such thing as a visual effects degree. They were effectively apprenticing into the industry. It wasn't formalized as an apprenticeship, but that's what they were doing. And we sort of wanted to go back to that model because we felt that was the best way for us to open the doors to a much more diverse pool of people, and people who perhaps hadn't considered that this industry existed. So a lot of our initiatives are around outreach. So we do a lot of work now with both primary and secondary schools to promote opportunities in our industry, but also to promote the idea that studying STEM doesn't mean you can't do something creative in general. You know, I'm not just going into school saying you must be a visual effects artist, but it's more to encourage that notion that STEM can also lead to all sorts of surprising careers that people hadn't considered. And then, yes, the apprenticeships have been key for us in terms of diversity. And to Race's point, actually, our most recent cohort as an industry was a really good balance. It was 50-50 male-female. We had about 30% BAME. But we also had a couple of people in there who were career changers or returners to work as well, so adult apprentices. And that's been really nice to see, and is really important to not forget, as Raisa said, in this whole discussion around apprenticeships.
And just on some of the initiatives, so for example, you mentioned the outreach programs. What are some of the successes you've had around outreach programs? So how did you come about your outreach program in terms of designing it, and then how has it translated into not necessarily results from an application perspective, but from an awareness perspective?
I don't want to steal too much of Neil's thunder because Neil's going to talk about Access VFX, so I don't want to take everything that Neil is going to say, but we are a relatively niche industry, and we certainly don't have any employers in the industry who are as large as something like a Jaguar Land Rover. You know, as I said, the biggest companies in the UK probably employ about 2,000 people tops, and there's only a handful of those. Most of the employers in our sector are SMEs. And so one of the things that we realized with our outreach program was that as individual employers, we were only going to reach a very limited number of young people, and that actually by coming together as an industry, we would have far greater impact and we would be able to have far greater reach. So that was definitely one of the things with planning that outreach program, is actually how can we work more effectively together? And I'll let Neil talk about how we've actually done that. But I think the other thing in terms of successes, awareness is definitely increasing, and where we've really seen that is in our apprentice cohorts. So we're now on our 6th apprentice cohort, I think, I've lost track, 5th or 6th. And our first cohort was made up of the sort of classic people that we have in our industry. So they were largely white, male and middle class. As I said, our most recent cohort, 50-50 split, much more BAME representation, spread of age ranges all the way from 16 to 40. So for me, that shows that our outreach is working, because the people who are applying and the people who are coming through into these jobs are different. You know, they're changing, they represent the community in which we work. And so for me, that's a key indicator that we are moving the needle slowly, but it's taken us time, because outreach to schools is the long game, right? As you said, you know, you're not going to see that translate to applications for several years. So
yeah, and I agree with you there that the term that was used yesterday was investing in early. So when you're going into schools, think of it as the long-term ambitions, not the short-term ambitions. So even when it comes to 16 to 18-year-olds, don't think of it as a okay, we need somebody in tomorrow. You've got to think of it as, where will they be where will they be tomorrow, where will they be in a year's time, where will they be in 6 years' time, etc. And that's kind of where the lead time works as well.